Top 5 cartridges that said, well, hold my beer. The hell is this?
Michelob Ultra.
I'm a guy. Thank you. Hi everybody, welcome back to First Friday Fives here on Go Big Boar or Go Home, where recoil is required. Why? Because we're the house of the rising gun. I'm your host Sean, and this month I wanted to talk about 5 big bore handgun cartridges that all looked at another cartridge and thought, I'm gonna one up that SOB. These cartridges all decided to apply Moore's Law. If some is good, more is better. And that's not a criticism. Moore's Law has given us great cartridges like the 44 Magnum and the 454 Casull. But these cartridges, they all felt compelled to say, well...
Number 5, the 500 Maximum. It may surprise some that this cartridge came in at number 5, but hear me out. While the rest of the cartridges here were designed by folks looking at someone else's cartridge, only the 500 Maximum was created by the same person who created the round that inspired it, and that man was John Linebaugh. When the 500 Linebaugh was revealed to the world in 1986, the gun riding crowd was truly astounded. What a behemoth! A .510-inch bullet shot from a revolver that used 435 grain and heavier bullets shot out of a 1.4-inch brass case at magnum velocities? This could punch holes through anything a hunter could set their sights on. Many asked if this was the peak of handgun power. Well, in 1991, John Linebaugh got his hands on some Ruger Blackhawk Maxima revolvers with their stretched frame for the 357 Maximum cartridge and wondered, I wonder what these could do with longer versions of my 500 and 475 Linebaugh rounds. Truth be told, he also threw in a .458-inch round, but it was the 500 Maximum that really caught everyone off guard. The brass was now 1.610 inches long, like the Super Mag brass, and added several hundred feet per second to the aforementioned bullets. The 525 grain bullet that scooted along at a respectable 1,100 feet per second in the 500 Linebaugh was now able to exceed 1,350 feet per second. These guns went scorched earth on game. But the recoil went scorched earth on the shooter. In reading John Taffin's review of the gun at the time, he said he would shoot in the morning and then lie down in the afternoon to recover as the gun created enough recoil and blast to make him physically ill. And John Taffin is no pushover either, so this was quite a statement. Still, getting that kind of performance out of a 3.5-pound revolver that was only larger in terms of a stretched frame and cylinder was one serious accomplishment. And the 500 Maximum handing its can of Budweiser off to the 500 Linebaugh while it did it was quite impressive. Number 4, the 50 Guncrafter Industries. In a less pragmatic and more eager desire way, the 50 GI was born of a hold my beer moment. Designed by Alex Zimmerman of Guncrafter Industries, who immigrated from Europe to the US, the 50 GI was the ultimate desire he had to be able to shoot a 50 caliber defense round out of a 1911. In truth, this had sort of been done with the LAR Grizzly Mark V, which is a bigger version of a 1911 chambered in the 50 Action Express, but that round is in no way a defense round, and its larger size was not quite the aesthetic that Zimmerman had in mind. Resembling a shorter version of the 50 AE, the 50 GI sports a .500-inch bullet and a brass case length of .899 inches with the AE's well-known rebated rim. Performance was much more applicable to the self-defense goal than the 50 AE, with ammunition consisting of 185 grain bullets at 1,200 feet per second, 230 grain bullets at 1,000 feet per second, 275 grain bullets at 875 feet per second, and 300 grain bullets at 700 feet per second. Muzzle energy was 591, 510, 468, and 326 foot-pounds respectively. Very usable stuff for self-defense. Or is it? The round remains unproven and unpopular, so gauging its effectiveness is difficult. And considering it is similar in power to a 45 ACP plus P or a 10mm auto, what is it bringing to the table besides the larger diameter? This really is a case of going bigger than a 45 because, well, you can. And perhaps one of the most baffling cases of telling another cartridge to hold its beer, the 50 GI handed off its brew to the 45 ACP and stepped forward. Number 3, the 10mm Magnum. Ever since the introduction of the 10mm auto back in 1983, there have been claims about its immense power. And while it is certainly a powerful round that outclasses the 45 ACP and can stand toe-to-toe with the 357 Magnum, the claims that it is equal to the 41 Magnum are not quite accurate. Don't get me started on the claim of it being equal to the .44 Magnum. One of the folks who was honest about the power of the 10mm auto was writer John Taffin. He stated it was nipping at the heels of the .41 Magnum, which was a favorite hunting cartridge of his. And that's pretty spot on. He wanted to know where a real 10mm hunting round was. It was at this time that AMT/IAI handed the .41 Magnum their glass of suds and stepped forward. In 1992, they decided to chamber their Automag 4 semi-auto pistol in their new 10mm Magnum round and send it off to, who else? John Taffin. The brass had a thicker web in the case head and was stretched from the 10mm .992 inches to 1.242 inches, and it could really generate some velocity, sending 180 grain bullets downrange at up to 1,625 feet per second and 200 grain bullets at 1,621 feet per second with Mr. Taffin's loadings. And at the end of the article he said, quote, "Anything the .41 Magnum can do, the 10mm Magnum can also do, and perhaps do it even a little faster and a little better. That is a tough confession for an old six-gun man to make." Unquote. This leads us to ask why such an Olympic-level performer is practically unheard of. Well, that's because the Automag 4 was the only gun ever chambered for it from the factory, and the lack of available ammunition at the time led to poor sales and having AMT/IAI drop it after just 1 year. These days, ammo is available from Double Tap and Aria Ballistic Engineering, shameless plug, but the only way to shoot it is through modified 10mm revolvers. It's too bad this one didn't take off, as it could have really been something. Number 2. The .460 Smith and Wesson Magnum. I bet some of you expected the .500 Smith and Wesson Magnum to be here, didn't you? Well, there's a good argument for that, but to me, the .460 is really the round that belongs here between the two. When Smith and Wesson developed the .500 Magnum, they were looking for serious hunting performance and a round to unquestionably reclaim the throne of most powerful handgun in the world, and there's no doubt they succeeded. But as often happens when something new hits the market, some folks will inevitably point out something it doesn't do as well as an existing option. Like trying to say that the .454 Casull was still the reigning champion of high handgun velocities. Well, the .460 Smith & Wesson Magnum handed off its bottle of Sam Adams and put paid to that. Smith & Wesson made use of their X-Frame's long cylinder and created a .45 caliber handgun hunting cartridge with brass at 1.8 inches long. It would shoot a 200 grain bullet at up to 2,409 feet per second. And I can personally attest that I have seen these velocities myself. Hornady's 200 grain FTX ammunition is rated at 2,200 feet per second, and I averaged 2,212 feet per second out of my 7.5-inch barrel .460 XVR PC revolver. And when I loaded the same bullets myself, I averaged 2,349 feet per second over 5 rounds that ranged from 2,288 feet per second to 2,416 feet per second. That is one round that delivered on its promises. And while this may have seemed like it was just to set a record, it definitely wasn't. The .460 Smith & Wesson Magnum is a serious hunting round that provides serious power to handgun hunters. It especially shines at the lightest and heaviest bullets for the caliber. I personally loaded 400 grain wide flat-nose gas check bullets at up to 1,550 feet per second. This is a beer handing off round that did it right. Serious performance, serious platform, and the support to get it moving. And the public has responded gleefully with a celebratory beer of their own after a successful hunt. Number 1. Drum roll, please. The 50 Action Express. I don't think there was a greater hold my beer moment in firearms history than when the engineers at Magnum Research asked, "How could the Desert Eagle be more badass?" in 1988, and Evan Wilden answered with the 50 Action Express cartridge. In the early 80s, the Desert Eagle was becoming popular due to its .44 Magnum chambering, odd iconic look, and succeeding to make a somewhat reasonably priced semi-auto Magnum pistol where many had failed entirely or had to charge vast sums to the consumer. But as always in business, you gotta keep moving forward, and Magnum Research knew it. The folks at MRI wanted something huge that would stand out as an end-all be-all.
Something huge.
How about if you blow up the Earth?
Too huge, but you're thinking. I like that.
And what better way to do that than with a 50 caliber Magnum semi-auto? They had the stout platform but needed a cartridge. For affordability of production's sake, the round needed to be the same overall length as the .44 Magnum. This would prevent expensive reworking of the frame, action, and barrel of the Desert Eagle. Not to mention that it was already huge, and making it even bigger wouldn't sound too appealing to customers.
It was huge.
They also needed to avoid having to engineer and manufacture an all-new bolt for the case rim, as this would be complex as well as costly. So what was the Hold My Beer round? Well, that would be the aforementioned 500 line ball. You now had a 50 caliber revolver round that was more or less practical for hunters. What better way of asking the line bot to hold on to a can of Pabst Blue Ribbon than to make a semi-auto Powerhouse 50? Now, due to the limitations of a semi-auto platform and the overall cartridge length of the 50AE, the 500 line bot is still more powerful, but also revolver only and carrying 5 rounds. The 50AE carried 7+1 before you reloaded, and it reloaded much faster. Despite me giving this cartridge a hard time, I still like it because it's a fun, cool, and pretty badass round. It has its limitations, sure, but again, what other semi-auto Magnum round is out there to step to the plate with it? And who can deny that the 50AE made the 44 Magnum Desert Eagle and the 500 line bot cartridge hold its beer while it stole the show and continues to do so?
Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the list. Do you think we got the right entrants on this list and got them in the right order? What cartridges do you think said, "Hold my beer"? Please tell us in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe as it really helps us out. And if you didn't enjoy it, thank you so much for getting this far in the video. We really appreciate it. And as always, go big bore or go home.
Many asked if this was the peak of handgun power. Well, in 1990... Dog.